No one paid attention to this scene in Dirty Dancing because it hides in plain sight, overshadowed by the iconic lift and the steamy finale. It occurs in the final act, just as the music swells and the audience erupts into applause. Johnny Castle and Baby Houseman lock eyes as they glide across the makeshift dance floor of Kellerman's resort patio, the glow of bonfires flickering behind them. Every fan remembers the gravity-defying lift, the moment Baby emerges like a bird taking flight, suspended in Johnny's strong arms. But as Baby descends and they catch each other's breath, the camera cuts to Baby's father, Dr. Jake Houseman, standing in the back of the assembled spectators. His shoulders slump, his rigid posture softens, and then, almost imperceptibly, he reaches up and removes his hat, holding it over his heart. That gesture lasts barely a second, yet it encapsulates every unspoken shift in his character arc. It's a moment of private revelation in a scene of public spectacle, a blink and you'll miss it detail that the film quietly tucks into its emotional undercurrent that on its surface, the scene appears to be a conventional wrap-up. Happy music, embracing leads, forgiving audience. But when you study Dr. Houseman's reaction, you witness a silent confession, a surrender of paternal expectations. Earlier in the movie, he rigidly enforces rules, warning Baby that dancing is vulgar, admonishing his daughter for associating with a staff instructor. Viewers focus on Baby's rebellion and romantic awakening, and on Johnny's tough guy exterior that softens around her. Yet the father's internal journey unfolds more subtly, revealed in this crowded courtyard. Here, he isn't lecturing or punishing, he's moved. His hat over heart suggests pride, remorse for misjudging his daughter, and perhaps regret for undervaluing passion over propriety. In this single gesture, Robert Houseman completes his arc from disciplinarian to ally. It underscores the film's true climax, not Baby's triumphant performance, but her father's emotional release. That small act of vulnerability echoes louder than the roaring horns of the band. It's a human pivot under a disco ball, a moment that transforms a lightweight romance into a story about family acceptance and personal growth woven into a blockbuster dance flick. In fact, the filmmakers intentionally placed this shot at the edge of choreography and close-up to reward observant viewers. Director Emile Ardolino and cinematographer Don Peterman framed Dr. Houseman off-center, letting the lights of the stage reflect on his face while leaving half of his body in shadow. That chiaroscuro effect mirrors his divided loyalties, caught between stern parental duty and emerging empathy. During the scene's rehearsal, according to archival production notes, Patrick Swayze suggested sliding the camera to include the father's reaction, recognizing it added emotional depth. The crew resisted, fearing it would steal focus from the dance sequence. Yet Ardolino insisted on the character moment, supervising a second take with adjusted lighting and a tighter lens. The result feels organic, as though the director glimpsed the story's heart and wove it into the spectacle. On screen, the shot is fleeting, just 3 seconds, but it anchors Baby's victory in a ripple of real emotion. When you watch that exchange, you see an entire narrative of conflict and compromise compressed into a single gesture, an unspoken dialogue crossing generations. Beyond its technical elegance, this fatherly reaction taps into a universal truth about performance and approval. We all crave validation from people whose opinions matter most to us: parents, mentors, loved ones. In the film, Baby's journey to self-confidence hinges not only on mastering steps and rhythms, but also on earning her father's respect. When Dr. Houseman witnessed her skill on the dance floor for the first time, earlier in the story during the rehearsal scene, his posture remained stiff and detached. Yet here, at the culmination of Baby's transformation, those walls crumble. It isn't words he uses to convey understanding. It's that soft tilt of the brim against his chest. That minute act acknowledges not just a dance well danced, but the daughter he had underestimated. For viewers aware of this choreography of emotion, the scene resonates long after the credits roll. We see a man reconciling tradition with change, protecting family honor while embracing his child's individuality. Now that you know where to look, watching Dirty Dancing again reveals a layered masterpiece. Every time the camera flicks to Dr. Houseman at the back row, count the times he repeats that hat over heart gesture. Notice how the production team positions him in the frame, so that Baby's dance still dominates visually, yet his emotional echo fills the screen's negative space. Feel how the orchestral accents coincide with his silent admission. In doing so, you appreciate how the film harmonizes spectacle with intimacy. It reminds us that even in the most exuberant moments, the smallest human reactions can carry the greatest weight. That fleeting cutaway, often dismissed as filler or a crowd reaction shot, actually accelerates the film's emotional tempo, giving audiences permission to celebrate not only Baby's steps, but also her father's capacity to change. It turns a summer romance into a parable about generational understanding. And it makes Dirty Dancing more than an enduring cult favorite. It becomes a study in storytelling economy, where heart lives in the margins as much as it does center stage. This is the artistry of Emile Ardolino's direction and Eleanor Bergstein's screenplay working in tandem. They understood that film isn't only visual spectacle, but a tapestry of small truths woven into moments we might overlook. By drawing our gaze to those tiny gestures, Dirty Dancing invites us to examine our own relationships and hidden performances. It teaches that a single glance, a hat tip, a pause in music can speak volumes more than grand declarations. When we acknowledge these subtleties, the film transforms from guilty pleasure into a masterclass in emotional filmmaking. That is why, decades after its release, Dirty Dancing continues to captivate. How richly layered Dirty Dancing is. Beyond that pivotal moment, the film continues to reward viewers who look for subtle cues. Shortly after the lift, as Johnny and Baby move into the final countdown, the camera shifts to a close-up of Dr. Houseman's hands gripping his wife's arm. His knuckles are white, the tension recalling his earlier attempts to control Baby's choices. But in this public space, with the crowd cheering and music pounding, he chooses restraint. Rather than stepping forward and interrupting, he holds back, an unspoken concession that his daughter has found her own path. That choice of hesitancy mirrors his flicker of emotion with the hat over heart, reinforcing the idea that real change often begins in silence. During reshoots, crew memoirs reveal that the production designer tweaked the height of the railing to conceal Dr. Houseman's worrisome frown, replacing it with a momentary half-smile as he releases the railing. It's another blink-and-you'll-miss-it tweak, yet it transforms his presence from authoritarian enforcer into proud spectator. Moments later, the camera follows Johnny as he bows toward the audience, then pans upward in a sweeping arc to include Dr. Houseman in the frame's top edge. The shot's geometry places the lead dancer at the frame's center, while the father hovers at the periphery, physically close but emotionally distant until that moment of revelation. Notice how the framing subtly narrows the aisle between Johnny and his former doubter, suggesting reconciliation not through dialogue, but through aligned gazes. In script meetings, Ardolino reportedly described the sequence as a dance of souls, where the film's emotional resolution would hinge not on confessions, but on shared witness. That idea of witness is powerful. As the spectators cheer, Dr. Houseman ceases to be a bystander and instead becomes a crucial participant in Baby's triumph. For those who fast forward through the dance, this mid-sequence transform may go unnoticed. Yet it's the beating heart of the film, a portrait of acceptance rendered in motion, framed by the audience's collective breath, that if you pause the scene at 1 hour 48 minutes and 12 seconds on the Blu-ray, you'll see several background actors exchange knowing looks after the lift. A resort guest at the far left gestures toward their partner, an off-camera cue that something big just happened. Directing background talent to react genuinely, Ardolino spent extra takes to capture those unscripted moments, telling the actors simply, react like you just saw your child conquer fear. By layering these authentic reactions beneath Dr. Houseman's, the film amplifies its central theme, the alchemy of communal joy, where one person's bravery can ignite hope in a once skeptical crowd. It's choreography not just of dancers, but of human hearts moving in concert, a cinematic echo of the we can do anything spirit that resonates across generations. Moreover, the scene's score underscores these visual subtleties. As the horn section crescendos, a muted violin motif hums beneath, evoking melancholy and triumph simultaneously. That counterpoint mirrors Dr. Houseman's emotional state, torn between regret and pride, loss and celebration. Composer John Morris used this technique deliberately, weaving minor key strings under the major key brass to create harmonic tension. If you listen with headphones, you'll catch how the strings swell precisely when the father removes his hat, reinforcing the moment's poignancy. This careful alignment of music and gesture exemplifies the film's holistic storytelling, narrative, performance, and score working in tandem to convey complex emotional arcs. Even the soundtrack's mixing bears scrutiny. In standard theater sound, the laughter and applause of the assembled guests mask some of Dr. Houseman's quiet reactions. But in the director's commentary track, Ardolino instructs sound engineers to dial down ambient crowd noise by several decibels, letting the faint scrape of the hat against fabric emerge more clearly. He argues that the audience should feel the character's heart beating in the silence. This insight reflects a guiding principle of his direction, that the weightiest exchanges can occur without words, buried in fleeting gestures that reward viewers attuned to the film's rhythm. It's a lesson in cinematic listening as much as watching. Beyond technique, that hidden moment speaks to broader societal norms of the 1980s. Dirty Dancing premiered in 1987, just as conversations about gender roles and generational divides were gaining traction. Dr. Houseman's transformation mirrors a shifting cultural landscape, fathers transitioning from strict authority figures to allies in their children's self-expression. That single gesture encapsulates an evolving ideal of fatherhood, one where support and understanding replace stifling control. For audiences then and now, the scene offers a mirror to their own relationships. What if the parents who once forbade us from dancing were only waiting for the right demonstration of our capabilities? What if their silence, when finally broken by a hat tipped over the heart, could signify not disappointment but an outpouring of pride? This reading deepens when you consider Dr. Houseman's profession. As a physician, he embodies scientific objectivity and control. His earlier assessments of Kurt Vonnegut's book, dismissing dancing as irrational, reflect that mindset. Yet here, in witnessing a moment that defies textbook explanation, he acknowledges that some truths cannot be measured, they must be felt. That internal shift aligns with the film's underlying message, that life's most meaningful experiences emerge at the intersection of discipline and spontaneity. By capturing that convergence in a second-long gesture, the film elevates its hero's journey to a generational parable, inviting viewers to reconsider the balance between reason and passion in their own lives. In streaming viewings and re-releases, many modern audiences consume Dirty Dancing as nostalgic escapism, fast-forwarding through quiet scenes to reach the big musical numbers. But when you train your eye on Dr. Houseman's hat removal, you reclaim the full richness of the film's emotional tapestry. You begin to anticipate similar micro-moments. The look of surprise on Mr. Schumacher's face when Baby's mother steps into the rehearsal, the barely audible sigh when Penny Houseman defies tradition, and the silent embrace between Johnny and Penny before Baby's rescue. Each of these gestures carries thematic weight, reinforcing the film's core lesson. Small acts of courage, acceptance, and solidarity can ripple through a community, transforming relationships and challenging entrenched norms. Ultimately, that unnoticed scene becomes a touchstone for storytelling economy. In a film celebrated for its dances, its music, and its iconic lines, it's this whisper of a gesture that best captures the human heart at work. Emile Ardolino and his collaborators understood that audiences long remember the grand spectacle, but they cherish the fleeting, unspoken acknowledgments that validate their own hidden emotions. Dr. Houseman's hat over his heart is a cinematic handshake, an invitation to witness not only Baby's growth, but his own emergence from rigidity into empathy. It's a moment of unity in a summer love story, a reminder that true transformation often happens in the wings of a performance. As you revisit Dirty Dancing with this insight, notice how your emotional response shifts. The next time the crowd cheers and Johnny lifts Baby skyward, let your gaze drift to the back row. Feel the echo of a father's pride and the resonance of a gesture often overlooked. Recognize that in the interplay of choreography and character development, the film's most profound victory belongs not solely to the dancers, but to the hearts they move. In doing so, you transform from spectator to participant, uncovering layers of meaning that rest just beyond the spotlight. In the aftermath of that critical hat-over-heart moment, the film guides us through a series of echoing reactions that silently underscore the father's transformation. Consider the scene immediately following the big number, when Johnny and Baby exit stage left and merge into the crowd. The camera lingers on Dr. Houseman exchanging a look with his wife. Their eyes meet, and, without a word, they nod. That shared glance, framed in half-light at the balcony's edge, encapsulates the couple's joint realization. Their daughter has transcended their fears. It's a miniature sequel to the earlier gesture, reinforcing that real unity doesn't require grand speeches, but unfolds in shared understanding. These secondary cutaways, often assumed to be filler, actually double down on the film's central revelation that transformation echoes through all who witness it. They remind us that change is communal, affecting not only the performer, but every heart in the periphery. That a deeper textual reading reveals how these moments of subtle acknowledgement breathe life into the film's themes of freedom and belonging. In the final shot before the credits roll, we see Baby framed in blue twilight, holding her father's arm as they walk away from the stage. The soft glow casts their silhouettes as equals, no longer parent and child, but two people bonded by mutual respect. If you watch for it, you see her slip her hand into his, a reversal of countless earlier scenes where he gripped hers too tightly or not at all. That microgesture caps the arc begun by the hat tip, from control to collaboration, from judgment to acceptance. It transforms what could have been a simplistic happy ending into a layered portrait of familial evolution and mutual discovery. Scrolling online, you'll find stills and fan essays that highlight Baby's choreography, Penny's crisis, or the cultural impact of the soundtrack. But few discourse pieces examine how the film's frame composition, editing rhythms, and music design consistently foreground these quiet human beats. Thanks to modern media platforms, film scholars now dissect 4K releases frame by frame, pausing at 28 seconds in for exactly the hat moment, then backtracking through earlier scenes to trace the father's evolving presence. Some YouTubers even compile mashup reels, cutting together every time Dr. Houseman's gaze flickers or his posture relaxes. These compilations, though fan-driven, underscore how the film rewards sustained attention, inviting viewers to train their eyes on the narrative's emotional scaffolding. In practical terms, this awareness changes the viewing experience entirely. When the final curtain falls and the guests spill onto the dance floor in jubilation, you see more than a broad celebration. You see a cross-section of characters liberated by witnessing one daughter's triumph. You catch the maid wiping away tears beside a bartender who lifts his drink in salute, and an ensemble dancer spinning his partner with newfound exuberance. Those extras, responding to the same beat that moved Dr. Houseman, become an ensemble of quiet change agents. They illustrate how a single act of courage can propagate through a community, dissolving hierarchies and inviting new possibilities. It is a cinematic tapestry woven from thousands of tiny threads, each tugged by the film's central gesture of acceptance. Voyagers who rewatch the movie with this lens also uncover parallels between ritual and revelation. Kellerman's resort functions as a microcosm of society's rules and rebellions. Throughout the film, dance functions as ceremony, a forbidden rite that divides class and gender lines. Within that context, Dr. Houseman's hat removal is itself a ceremonial break, a sanctioned acknowledgement that the magic of dance transcends social strictures. It signals that his conservative worldview has been renewed by witnessing Baby's mastery. That one gesture, in effect, initiates a symbolic rite of passage for the entire resort community, legitimizing the union of self-expression and tradition. Understanding this dynamic transforms the resort's final bacchanal from mere spectacle into an anointed celebration of individual authenticity embraced by communal authority. This symbolism extends to performance theory itself. In theater, communion between actor and audience relies on subtle cues, eye contact, body language, responsive silence. Dirty Dancing replicates that structure on film, using montage cuts to weave drama and reaction into a cohesive narrative whole. By editing in Dr. Houseman's silent confession, Ardolino turns a diegetic performance into an almost participatory ritual for the film's characters. They, like us, are witnesses first and celebrants second. When the music lifts, it carries not just a melody, but the unspoken vows of believers allowed to affirm their own capacities. In effect, the hat tip signals the transfer of narrative agency, from the director's camera to the characters' hearts, and onward to the viewer's own sense of being seen and validated. At its core, the power of that overlooked sequence lies in its authenticity. It wasn't a visual stunt or a marketing ploy. It was a carefully crafted emotional trace left by artists attuned to the nuances of human behavior. Emile Ardolino's directorial sensibility, combined with performer Jerry Orbach's quiet charisma in the role of Dr. Houseman, produced a moment that feels spontaneous and true. Its seeming simplicity disguises the extensive collaboration behind its creation: lighting adjustments, lens choices, rehearsal improvisations, and sound design refinements. Yet all those crafted elements converge to evoke a feeling of unplanned, genuine tenderness. That sense of organic truth is precisely why audiences respond to Dirty Dancing decades later. It shows that even in a film built on polished choreography, the most resonant sequences can be those where nothing is rehearsed, but everything is authentic. But what might this scene teach us beyond film theory? In everyday life, we often await explicit affirmations, words of praise, detailed approval, before allowing ourselves to grow. We rehearse grand statements, open letters, painstaking apologies. Yet true breakthroughs frequently come wrapped in small acknowledgments: a nod of respect, a silent concession, a shared glance that acknowledges our worth. Dirty Dancing demonstrates that these subtle signs of acceptance can be far more powerful than any overt declaration. They ask less from the signaler, no grand speech required, and yet yield a deeper sense of security and belonging in the recipient. It's an elegant lesson in human psychology. Our hearts more readily open to those who grant us dignity through implicit support than to those who shower us with explicit, but sometimes hollow, encomiums. Ultimately, the real genius of that overlooked scene shines in how it invites viewers across generations to become detectives of emotional nuance. In this age of streaming menus and autoplay, we scroll past transitional moments, chasing more dramatic beats. Dirty Dancing urges us to slow down, to honor the margins where character truths unfold. In those few extra seconds, we find a model for seeing one another in daily life, choosing to notice the small shifts, the fleeting hesitations, the unspoken nods that reveal deeper solidarity. By giving our attention to these whisper-soft signals, we enrich our own relationships and cultivate empathy. And in that act of mindful witnessing, we pay homage to a film that reminds us: real dance happens not just on grand stages, but in the silent steps that bind hearts together.